Keefe D named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to 2Pac.
Only man currently facing murder charges in the case, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, claims that Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, paid for a hit on 2Pac. Now Davis is fighting for bail ahead of his murder trial, which he has pleaded not guilty for.
Have you been able to retain the services of counsel?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to need to appoint an attorney to represent you today. Do you understand that?
Here today just to tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time, we'll start to see that.
The courtroom was on fire. Every seat taken, tension so thick you could slice it. Every hushed whisper hit like a bomb, echoing years of rumors and unanswered questions. And right there in the spotlight, Sean Diddy, cool as ever, but with eyes on him like never before. This man, once ruling the hip-hop world like a boss, now stood accused of something straight out of a gangster flick. For decades, Tupac Shakur's murder had been the ultimate cold case, wrapped in mystery with shady stories, quiet witnesses, and a whole lot of denial. But today, the silence got shattered, and the noise absolutely insane. New bombshells didn't just link Diddy to the drama, they made him look like the one who called the shot.
He's no different than any other defendant. I mean, we had a feeling this day was coming in the recent history.
Like he was the mastermind behind a twisted plan that didn't just shake the streets, it flipped the entire music game upside down. Everything flipped the second Keefe D stepped out of the shadows. For years, his name had been buzzing low-key in the streets, whispered in barbershops, back rooms, and deep threads online. Folks knew he was close to the truth, maybe even in it, but no one thought he'd talk. Now, he wasn't hiding anymore. Keefe D stood bold, saying he had a first-hand seat to what really went down the night Tupac was gunned down in Vegas. And what he had to say, straight up explosive.
Well, it's a cold case. It's been lingering for 27 years. And any case that's 27 years old sometimes presents some challenges, but we feel very confident that the criminal justice system will work in this way.
This wasn't just some wild story. This came from a hidden police interview that's now the heart of the case. Keefe didn't just point fingers. He dropped a bomb. He claimed Diddy put out a massive bounty. Money so big, it turned heads in every direction. The target? Not just Tupac, but Suge's Knight too. And Keefe made it crystal clear this wasn't about business, music beef, or chart wars. It was about survival. According to him, Diddy was scared out of his mind and saw Pac and Suge as real threats that needed to be erased. And the craziest part, Keefe described a secret meeting in a Los Angeles deli, right in the open, but real quiet. He said Diddy sat across from him and laid it all out, plain as day. No coded talk, no guessing games, just straight paranoia and desperation.
We are not done, and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
At the time, Diddy was riding high. Platinum hits, the face of Bad Boy Records, untouchable in the public eye. But behind the scenes, Keefe claimed he was shaking in his boots, terrified that Pac and Suge were closing in and ready to crush everything he built. The beef between Death Row and Bad Boy wasn't just about diss tracks or slick jabs in interviews anymore. It had turned deadly serious. According to Keefe D, things got way deeper than music. He claimed Diddy looked him dead in the eye and said, "I'll give anything to get rid of these guys." That line hit different. It wasn't about crushing the competition. It was about wiping them off the map. That's the level this had reached. Real life or death stakes. The setup around this meeting, straight out of a crime movie, imagine it. A dim corner of a low-key deli in LA. Diddy rolling in with his crew. Tension so thick you could choke on it. Across the table, Keefe D, a certified street player with ties running deep into the Southside Crips, just sitting back and listening while Diddy, allegedly fired up, started venting heavy about Suge and Pac. For years, this whole scene lived in whispers, in street talk, behind closed doors, in hushed voices online.
The judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and males.
workers across state lines to take part in recorded actual performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence.
But now, it's front and center, printed in a 180-page court document being called a roadmap to 2Pac's assassination. And in that paperwork, Keefe D doesn't hold back. He straight up admits he supplied the gun that ended Pac's life. He didn't say he pulled the trigger, but he made it clear who did. And here's the kicker, he pointed to his own blood. His nephew, Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, the same dude known for clashing with Pac just before the shooting. Keefe said Orlando was right there, in the back seat of the Cadillac that rolled up on Pac and Sugay's ride that night in Vegas. Let's not skip over the cold, haunting details of that night in Vegas, the night everything changed. Keefe D didn't just give vague memories. He laid out a scene, moment by moment, like he was watching a movie in his mind. He described how they rolled through the strip when suddenly they saw 2Pac with his head out the window, smiling, laughing, just vibing, completely unaware he had minutes left to live. Keefe allegedly said, if he wasn't hanging out the window, we might not have even seen him. That one moment, Pac just being carefree, was what triggered the entire thing. That glimpse sparked a hard U-turn, followed by a slow, deliberate roll-up to a red light, and then came the shots. Loud, brutal, unforgettable. The kind of violence that left a permanent scar on hip-hop forever.
The fact that this indictment came down is a little hope, but we want justice for Pac.
Keefe claimed the gun, a Glock tucked away in the car's armrest, was quietly passed to the back seat. That's where the trigger got pulled. No hesitation, no turning back. And Diddy? Where does he land in all this? According to Keefe D, he was the spark, the one who put the whole plan into motion. The promise of a fat reward, whispered about in the streets for years, was allegedly the motivation behind it all. Diddy's legal team has fired back hard, saying it's all lies, just a desperate move from a man trying to dodge prison time. But here's the twist. The prosecution isn't just leaning on Keefe's word, they're hinting at more. Phone records, money trails, and witness statements that could back up everything.
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the shoe have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on suicide watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there.
And the FBI's involvement, that's no joke. When they're in, it means the heat is real. Federal agents have reportedly been working in the shadows for years, quietly building a case that stretches back decades. And guess whose name keeps popping up? Diddy's, linked not just to the hit on 2Pac, but to a bigger web of alleged criminal activity that might have been hiding in plain sight the whole time. But things don't stop there, they get way messier. Keefe D isn't only putting Diddy in the hot seat, he's throwing others in the game too. According to him, this wasn't just some solo revenge plot. It was a multi-layered conspiracy with power players in the music industry possibly playing key roles behind the scenes.
Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff.
If what he's saying is true, this was bigger than anyone thought. More than street beef, more than bad blood. This was organized, intentional, and full of secrets. Now the courtroom is buzzing with questions. Who else might get dragged in? Could former bad boy insiders be forced to testify? Are there hidden records, old transactions, or secret messages buried in company files that could finally be revealed? The rumors alone are sending shockwaves through the music world. People are watching, wondering who's next.
I think it's to be expected, just the shock of this and the questions about what is ahead of us. I mean, how long is he going to be in custody? Is this an R. Kelly situation? Is he going to not get out for a number of years? Is he going to end up serving a long-term prison sentence from this? Or does he have a chance of beating these charges at a trial that could come?
At this point, Keefe D doesn't really have much to gain by lying. He's already neck deep in it. His ties to the South Side Crips are no secret, and his presence around the scene that night in Vegas isn't even up for debate. The real question now, just how far did he go, and can we actually trust the version he's telling now? Diddy's legal squad is coming in hard, trying to tear Keefe's claims apart piece by piece. They're painting him as a man on the edge, someone drowning in legal trouble and willing to say anything to catch a lifeline. They've called him unreliable, inconsistent, and desperate, claiming his story shifts depending on who's listening and when. The team is also pointing fingers at the timing, calling this a strategic smear campaign meant to drag Diddy's name through the mud when he's most vulnerable.
In her civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, sexual assault, and at the hands of Diddy.
And here's the kicker. They're not wrong about one thing. So far, there's no concrete evidence linking Diddy directly to the trigger or the scene. No fingerprints, no video, no smoking gun, just talk, speculation, and courtroom heat. But as the trial rolls on, it's becoming obvious this case ain't just about what went down in Vegas back in '96. Underneath all the flashy videos, iconic tracks, and legendary beefs, the '90s hip-hop scene was a ticking time bomb, packed with massive egos, shady alliances, and grudges that ran deep. And now, with these allegations against Diddy hitting the surface, that golden era glow is starting to fade, revealing something way darker, something raw, ugly, and real. As the courtroom drama unfolds, there's this heavy sense that we're standing at the edge of a major shift.
I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on suicide watch.
These accusations against Diddy aren't just some sidebar to 2Pac's murder. They're shaking the entire foundation of what we thought we knew about the industry. This isn't just about who pulled the trigger. It's about why and who else knew. What was once seen as a cultural rivalry is now looking more like a blueprint for betrayal. And even with all the details dropping, this story still feels unfinished. For every question that finally gets answered, 3 more pop up, each one darker than the last. The shadows keep stretching longer, deeper, like we're nowhere near the bottom of this mess.
Okay, some people do think that Diddy can help him, but this guy's going to be locked up forever. His case will probably take at least 3 years to litigate. He'll stay at MDC. There's rumors that he wants to go to Essex County Jail in New Jersey because he doesn't like MDC. He's a Marshals inmate. There's no way they're going to transfer him back and forth, I don't know, several times a week.
And as Diddy's name keeps circling at the center of it all, it's getting harder to ignore the bigger picture. This wasn't just one man's move. This whole thing was fueled by years of beef, backroom handshakes, and unchecked power plays that turned the East Coast versus West Coast feud from lyrical warfare. This wasn't just some petty feud between 2 stars. Shakur and Diddy were just the faces of something way bigger and way more dangerous. Behind the scenes, 2 record labels, Death Row and Bad Boy, were locked in a battle that went way past the music. This was war, plain and simple, a twisted mix of business moves and street tactics that blurred every line between rap fame and real-life chaos. What started as a fight for the top of the charts quickly turned into a full-blown street-level conflict, driven by egos and ambition that had no limits. And pulling the strings behind the curtains, Suge Knight and Diddy, 2 powerhouses with different styles but the same hunger for control. They weren't just building brands, they were building kingdoms, and they weren't afraid to go to war to protect them. This beef didn't explode overnight either. It simmered, slow and toxic. It started with disses, shady business plays, and personal slights. Then came betrayal after betrayal, each one adding fuel to the fire. Suge Knight, with his larger-than-life presence and ruthless attitude, ran Death Row like a warlord, using intimidation and street muscle to hold his throne. And Diddy? He might have been all flash, shiny suits, and champagne in public, but behind closed doors, Keefe D claims he was just as down to get his hands dirty to guard his empire. For years, Suge and Diddy moved like chess masters, treating their artists like pawns and their entourages like soldiers. Suge Knight didn't just want to outshine Bad Boy. He wanted to destroy them brick by brick. It wasn't enough to compete. He wanted to embarrass them, tear down their legacy, and make sure everyone knew who really ran the game. And Diddy? he wasn't the type to back down or play nice. He had his own empire to protect, and he was ready to go to war over it. Everything boiled over at the 1995 Source Awards, the moment that made the beef official. Suji took the mic and, without saying Diddy's name, threw the slickest shade of the decade. He called out label execs who were always in the videos, always on the records, stealing the shine from their own artists. It was a public punch to the face, a line drawn in the sand, and everybody watching knew exactly who he meant. From that moment, it wasn't just a business rivalry anymore. It got deeply personal. The artists, they were caught in the middle, turned into pawns in a street-level chess match they never asked to play. 2Pac, who once had a solid bond with Biggie, ended up on the other side of the war after the infamous 1994 robbery left him shot, angry, and paranoid. Whether the setup was real or not, Pac was convinced Bad Boy had something to do with it. And when he signed with Death Row, Suge took that paranoia and turned it into a weapon. He hyped Pac's rage, steering it straight at Diddy and Biggie. Suddenly, Pac's tracks weren't just diss songs, they were verbal grenades. Each lyric was loaded, sharp, and dangerous. Every diss track, every bold insult on stage or in interviews, it all just kept throwing gasoline on an already raging fire. But behind the noise, behind the beats and the bars, there was something way more calculated going down, something deeper, more sinister. Insiders from both sides have come forward over the years, claiming that this feud wasn't just built on ego or pride, it was engineered. A whole underground network of go-betweens, real street-connected players, not just record label flunkies, were allegedly working overtime to keep the beef alive and burning. These weren't hype men. These were individuals who thrived on drama, people who knew how to turn tension into power moves and chaos into control. According to long-standing rumors, messages between camps were twisted on purpose. Words were taken out of context, insults were exaggerated, and everything was made to feel 10 times worse than it really was. Why? Because chaos kept the spotlight hot and the streets talking. One former Death Row associate even claimed that Suge's crew purposely leaked fake versions of 2Pac's feelings about Diddy to Bad Boy insiders. They wanted the drama to grow. They needed the beef to boil. It wasn't just about retaliation, it was strategy, manipulation, and it worked. But let's not act like it was all one-sided. Word on the street says Diddy's camp was out here playing the same dirty game. Whispers claim they were working back channels too, purposely feeding Pac's paranoia, planting seeds to keep him on edge. It wasn't just a rap beef anymore. It had turned into a full-on psychological chess match.
It's a question of that, but when you read through the indictment, it's pretty clear who could be indicted as a co-conspirator. Right now, there are people in the indictment who would be considered unnamed co-conspirators, but clearly have played a role in this conspiracy. And I think prosecutors have some big leverage on them because they're hoping that they testify against Diddy as prosecution witnesses.
And both sides were moving pieces with no mercy and zero concern for the damage they left behind. And the damage, it was massive. This wasn't just about records or rivalries. It was a war with real-world consequences. Beyond the flashy headlines and record-breaking sales, there was a body count building. The entourages got bigger, more aggressive, rolling deep and ready for anything. Both camps started stacking supporters like they were loading up for battle, grabbing up allies like bullets in the clip. The feud didn't just stay in the studios or on stage, it bled into entire neighborhoods. People were choosing sides not because of personal beef, but because of where they were from and what they represented. If you were West Coast, you had to ride for Pac. If you repped the East, you were down with Biggie. There was no middle ground, just pressure, pride, and paranoia. Artists who tried to stay neutral, they caught strays too. Some lost respect, others faced threats, and a few straight up feared for their lives. By the time 2Pac signed with Death Row, it wasn't just lines being drawn. It was stone-carved war. There was no turning back. The streets had picked sides, the industry had split, and everyone involved was locked in, whether they liked it or not. This wasn't some staged beef cooked up for TV drama or album hype. No, this was real. The stakes were sky high and the danger was deadly. These entourages weren't just extras in music videos. They were real crews, strapped and ready, carrying grudges that ran deeper than any track could ever express. The line between corporate strategy and street survival? Razor thin, and once things spilled over, which they always did, the fallout was straight catastrophic. By the time the smoke cleared, it was too late. Two of hip-hop's brightest flames, Tupac and Biggie, were gone, shot dead, just like that. And the entire music world was left in shock, trying to figure out how it all went so far. Suge Knight, according to multiple claims, didn't just talk tough, he funded the streets. Allegedly, he put real money behind street crews to handle the dirty work, keeping his hands clean while chaos unfolded in his name. Meanwhile, Diddy, slicker and more calculated, allegedly used his cash and powerful connections to keep himself insulated from the storm he helped stir up. It was a dangerous game of plausible deniability, where both men kept their empires intact while letting others absorb the bloodshed and consequences.
But there's also strategic reasons for the prosecutors to want him to have co-defendants, because right now he hasn't waived his right to a speedy trial, which would force prosecutors to take him to trial pretty quick, which they actually might not be ready to do. But if they supersede him and have co-defendants with him, it makes it a lot easier to pursue a trial continuance without him waiving his speedy trial.
And for a long time, it worked. Suge and Diddy rose to the top, looking untouchable. Publicly, they were moguls, powerhouses, icons. But behind them, the people in their circles, rappers, friends, bodyguards, and business partners were falling like dominoes, victims of a war they didn't start, but got dragged into anyway. Now, decades later, the foundation they built is starting to crack. In courtrooms packed with tension, new testimonies are shining light on what's been buried for years. And it's not just about Diddy or Pac's murder anymore, it's about the entire culture they helped create. Diddy's legal team might be brushing off these claims as baseless, but at this point, the weight of the evidence and witness talk is getting too heavy to ignore. It's no longer just Keefe D tossing accusations. There are quiet murmurs of more people stepping up, former insiders, ex-employees, folks who were close enough to see how things really work, and now they're ready to speak, ready to drop their own receipts. And let's not forget about Suge Knight. Yeah, he's locked up on other charges right now, but don't get it twisted, his presence still looms huge over this entire situation. Rumors are swirling that he might be called to testify too, if that happens. All bets are off. Suge has always been unpredictable, a wild card who lives for chaos, who built his whole empire off intimidation and shock value. If he ends up on the stand, it could go either way. Will he back up Keefe D's version of events and tighten the noose around Diddy, or will he flip the whole thing, throw in new names, and take the scandal to an even crazier level? One thing's for sure, if Suge talks, it's gonna be explosive. Diddy's empire, once seen as untouchable, unstoppable, invincible, is now shaking at the foundation. His brand, his legacy, his future. It's all hanging by a thread. And the fallout? It's reaching every corner of the industry. Artists who once stood by his side are now going quiet. Executives who used to sing his praises are backing away. And fans, the same ones who grew up idolizing his every move, are suddenly questioning everything they thought they knew. Because the deeper you dig, the darker it gets. And this ain't just about Diddy. This is about a whole system that let men like him and Suge Knight rise to the top without any real checks. An industry that chased profit over people. That looked the other way while power games turned deadly. That glorified excess, violence, and ego, even when it meant destroying its own. So now we're left wondering, what does it all mean? The trial's still unfolding and the full truth hasn't come out yet. But make no mistake, this isn't just a story about the past. It's about the present, about the decisions being made right now, about who we choose to praise, protect, or expose, and it's about the kind of legacy that gets left behind when the smoke finally clears. As more evidence drops and more names get dragged into the light, the real question becomes, is Diddy just a product of the system, a victim of circumstance, or has he been orchestrating something far bigger than anyone saw coming? Are we witnessing one of the biggest takedowns in hip-hop history, or is this just the next wild twist in a saga that refuses to die? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We really want to hear what you think. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss a single update. Because trust us, this story's just getting started. See you on the next one.